out. It's just, we had a good week for Valentine's this week. I'm Jeannie McGee. I'm the church lady. Seems like every night now is filled up with something at Unity, but that's okay. I'm loving the energy, and I'm so glad all of you are here. And I see we've got a great group on Zoom, so that's really wonderful. So I'm going to do my little thing where we do a mudra that gets started, to get connected, to walk into this wonderful morning. So we gather up the energy from the earth, and we come to ourselves. Now we're going to flow into this. Okay, so here you are, hands on heart. Imagine reaching out to the group, the community. See yourself embracing the community. Now flow into that. And in this community we have great teachers. Imagine yourself connecting to teachers in the community or anywhere. And flow into that. Now imagine yourself connecting to all Unity churches meeting this wonderful Sunday morning. And flow into that. And now connect to all that is. And so here we are today, leaving distractions behind, walking into this beautiful morning. Let's say our statement of being together. There is only one power, one presence, and one power in my life and in the universe. God, the good, the omnipotent. So we have an inspirational word today, aspire. I aspire to create a world that works for all. That's what we're all looking for. That's going to be part of today's talk, is thinking of that beautiful, perfect world. And we hold a vision of an equitable world, a global community that supports and encourages all people to live fully from their divinity in order to reach their unique human potential. I feel a kinship with those who hold a similar vision and work to realize it, like this community here. So I aspire. Yeah. Before we get started, we come to prayer, and in Unity we have affirmative prayer. And it's a very simple 5 movements. I like to think of it as movements, not steps. So we open, and we expand to God is, I am, I can, and I know, and I appreciate. So we've stepped in. Let's take a breath and open our hearts and minds to whatever this morning brings. I feel a little bit of spring coming on, seeing some jonquils, and I realize that God is the order of this world, this universe. And we are stepping into that orderly transition from winter to spring. And we celebrate that. God is life, love, and wisdom, and I am that life, love, and wisdom. This morning we're going to be talking about the bittersweet and the yearning that we have to be in union with God. And we pray that we can realize that union in our lives. We appreciate this beautiful community. Our beautiful Arkansas. We are in a wonderful place. We are grateful. And so it is. Amen.
I don't know where you found that.
my favorite songs. And Leonard Cohen, this morning's talk, the good, the bad, and the bittersweet. And Leonard Cohen definitely defines bittersweet. He was a very melancholic kind of an artist, but wrote so many beautiful songs. Now, I know I normally play something kind of upbeat before the lesson, and you all know I love to dance. Who wouldn't love a good Latin beat or a jazzy rhythm? But this morning is about looking at the bittersweet, and you won't believe. I got the idea this week, the download, and my head's exploding with all the different places I started looking for this. Because we do love a sad song. We love a stirring melody. We love the orchestra and the strings and the violin. And it always opens our hearts. So we're going to look into that. Actually, we've made a business out of being happy, if you think about it. At the first sign of depression, many people seek an antidepressant. Now, I just want to be very clear about this. Sometimes that's a very appropriate thing to do. But do we do it too much, perhaps? I don't know. Americans seem to prioritize happiness. So much so that we wrote the pursuit of it in our founding documents. What is it in the Constitution, the preamble? Pursuit of happiness? Often, even we unitics kind of get into this spiritual bypass. We say, oh, it's all good, all is well, and we just don't deal with it, So that happens even for us. Now, mankind, by the way, this is the bittersweet fruit, the berry. I wouldn't recommend eating it. Evidently, it could make you, it wouldn't kill you, but it wouldn't like full stick. So there is that about the bittersweet. And here's a couple of quotes. Life at best is bittersweet. Well, I don't know at best, but I found out that life really has a lot of bittersweet in it as I started looking at everything. And another quote that I found, when life is sweet, say thank you and celebrate. And when life is bitter, say thank you and grow. Because that's the point. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. So, now mankind has been wondering about how to deal with melancholia for a very long time. 2,000 years ago, Aristotle wondered why the great poets and philosophers and politicians and artists often had melancholic personalities. His question was based on the ancient system of classifying us into the four humors, the four fluids. And so we have, we have the sanguine, which is the happy person, the melancholic, which is sad, the choleric person, which is aggressive, maybe angry, and then phlegmatic, which is more on the calm side of, go with the flow. I was talking to Travis about that this morning, and I loved it. They used to think it might determine your personality, so I love this wood carving here. So let's see. So this is the sanguine person down here in the lower corner, and this is the choleric person, furrowed brow, maybe angry. This is phlegmatic, kind of neutral. And then look at this old sad thing, the down-turned mouth. That is the melancholic. Now Eeyore, in the Winnie the Pooh character, that's a very melancholic character. And then we have Tigger. Well, whoa, he's everywhere. So all those different characters take on these personality traits too. So, here's a wood carving. I didn't get the date on this, but this artist famously depicted melancholy as a downcast angel surrounded by symbols of creativity and knowledge and yearning. And I was hoping that y'all would get a lot of detail in there, but that is a pretty sad angel if you think about it. And in the Bible there was melancholia. The Psalms, many of the Psalms were laments, and then Well, Jesus wept. You remember that short verse? Jesus wept a couple of times, and he often had to go off on his own to pray and to just separate, and to be alone. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he did that very thing. So this has been around for a while. Now, American culture is very sanguine and sometimes choleric, as we associate with buoyancy and strength. It is forward-leaning, our culture is often, and combat-ready. And we've seen, boy, haven't we seen a lot of combat-ready, people are divisive and they stand with their opinion. We're often very goal-oriented, and we express righteous outrage. And none of this is bad per se, it's just that it gets out of hand. We go at the other extreme. It's okay to be optimistic and positive and confident. Those are good things. However, even with any of these qualities, we can just overdo it. So all this vigorous cheer and socially acceptable anger disguise the reality that all humans are really fragile and vulnerable and impermanent. If we start feeling special and better than others, what happens? We're not going to be in the melancholia when we do that, but we also lose empathy with people when you think you're better than. So we want to look at the upside of melancholia today, if we can. Now, here's what inspired it. This is a new book. It just came out. Well, I don't know when it was published, but Oprah endorsed it this week. And I don't always get on Oprah's books, but I was just fascinated by this topic. And this woman, Susan Cain, is the author, and she's also written a book called Quiet. It's about the power of the introvert. It's a really good book. And but then I got Bittersweet. And her writing is amazing. She tells many stories. She gives wonderful examples of people, and thoroughly explores this issue. But it's a very readable book, even though it's nonfiction. She has many stories in it that I love. She says, bittersweet is a tendency to states of longing, poignancy, and sorrow, an acute awareness of passing time. Now, I know about that. As we get older, we see that passing of time. We see the changes, and that's bittersweet. And it's a curiously piercing joy at the beauty of the world. And I really like that. And the bittersweet is also about the recognition of dualities, light and dark, birth and death, bitter and sweet. But here's the deal, they're forever paired. We live really in a both-and world. The bittersweet is about the desire for communion, the wish to go home, like feeling homesick. And that reminded me of a quote from Emily Cady in Lessons in Truth. Now, I didn't memorize this, I had to look it up, but it is one of my favorites, definitely underlined in any version I have of Lessons in Truth. And it says, the hunger of everyone for satisfaction is only the cry of the homesick child. For satisfaction is only the cry of the homesick child for its mother, father, mother, God. It is only the Spirit's desire in us to come forth into our consciousness as more and more perfection until we shall have become fully conscious of our oneness with all perfection. Man or woman, that never has been and never can be satisfied with anything less. We have that yearning, that constant yearning for God, for the divine. And again, we are human, we celebrate that, but we've got to return to that full divinity. Susan found melancholia to be brimming with human potential. She says it's an authentic and elevating response, and I said this last week, it's that response to the fundamental anxiety of being human. Bittersweetness shows us how to respond to pain by acknowledging it and attempting to turn it into art and healing and innovation. It motivates us. It really gives us that, it gives us a really good energy. And the longing is not passive, it's active. And it touches the creative, the tender, and the divine. Speaking of this fully human and fully divine, okay, so recall in the last couple of weeks that we've talked about this process of unfolding, and we have this essential self that has all the divine powers that we need, everything we need, the love, everything, the wisdom, the order, it's all here. And these are qualities we long for, and sometimes we forget, but in our hearts we yearn for these qualities. And the more that we seek it within ourselves, as opposed to trying a strategy to get it out here, then we really begin to live compassion and live into that divinity. So longing is the great gateway to belong. Longing is the great gateway to belonging. So look at these quotes. This is from throughout time. Many wise people have written about longing. In the cloud of unknowing, that's an anonymous author, your whole life must be one of longing. In the Quran, those who constantly cherish only intense longing to encounter the essential face of their Lord, the divine, only then will they attain complete realization. Master Eckhart said, God is the sigh of the soul. And St. Augustine, our heart is restless till it rests in thee. Beautiful quotes. There's many stories of yearning. Think about Ulysses in the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. You know what that started with? He was homesick. He had been in the Trojan Wars and he wanted to go home. Now, of course, in the Odyssey they had a lot of adventures in getting home. That took a long time, but it was that homesickness that drove him. Think about Harry Potter. Harry Potter lost his parents early, and he was seeking his birthright through all those books and all that adventure, and wanting to really understand where he came from, who his parents were, why had he been living with the moles, and when in fact he had all this magic in him. He didn't even know that till he discovered it. So there's many, many books and stories that have this yearning. Hamlet had a yearning. You can think about it. There's many of the famous Shakespearean plays. We could just go on and on and on. This is where I had a lot of fun sitting down and thinking about, well, what is this yearning, this bittersweetness? And I just came up with so many examples, and I had to just tamp it down and say, no, wait a minute. I can only hear so much in a lesson, but anyway. So whether you long for a beautiful home, a beach vacation, a lost person, an unborn child, the fountain of youth, unconditional love, all of these things are manifestations of the same great ache. The perfect and beautiful world. The perfect and beautiful world. Now, in the religions, we call this perfect and beautiful world many things. Nirvana, enlightenment, the kingdom of heaven, bring it on earth, somewhere over the rainbow, the Garden of Eden, the shore from which we were deported before we were born. Do we feel like we were shoved out into the middle and we want to return to the shore? And then the Sufis call it the beloved of the soul. So we've expressed this idea in many of our religions and philosophies. This longing is at the heart of our compassion. There was a researcher, and he was Danish, Dr. Keltner, and he wrote Born to be Good, and he wrote about the compassionate instinct. And this was really kind of interesting because they did neuroscience research about it. The idea that we humans are wired to respond to each other's troubles with care. Our nervous system makes little distinction between our own pain and the pain of others. And I kind of wondered about that one, but okay. Researchers have found the instinct to activate regions in the brain. Kellner discovered that when we witness suffering, our vagus nerve makes us care. As Kellner explains, caring is right at the heart of human existence. Sadness is about caring, and the mother of sadness is compassion. It's all connected. Oh, and we keep talking about connections all year long, so that's pretty cool. Well, I want to try this little video. So, I played the song. I played Leonard Cohen, and that stirs up that bittersweet melancholia. Take a look at this. This was really interesting, and I tried it, and it's kind of amazing. So, this is set in a hospital. beautiful? Did that move you? It did. Even the second time, it was, I felt, I don't know why I felt it through here. Some of you may have had a lump in your throat. I don't know if you, I think I even teared up the first time I saw it. And what did you notice? Did you know, some people were obviously in pain, but some were not. Who would know? We all have that common humanity of sadness. There could be something going on that we just don't know. I just thought that was a beautiful thing. Now, if you did feel sad, there is a quiz in this book called the Bittersweet quiz. And if you felt something, you're going to score higher up on that. It was an interesting short little quiz. I can tell you about it later if you're interested. You know, sorrow and tears are one of the strongest bonding mechanisms we have. It's the union between souls. This is really where we get our connection. It's fun to celebrate with somebody, but in sadness, we really can connect. We share that common suffering because any of those situations, we may not have had exactly all of those situations, but we get it. It happens to be when we're sad, one of the few times we're vulnerable and completely open and honest about our feelings. Well, speaking of feelings, one of the interesting stories in this book was about Inside Out, the backstory that goes with it. Now, I used this in this summer. We did metaphysics at the movies, and I did animation, and I love this story. It's the story about a little girl, Riley, she's 11 years old. She gets taken out of her home in Minnesota and has to move to San Francisco and adjust. And but they very cleverly let you know what's really going on with Riley by having this control center with all these feelings. Now, I dealt with the plot of the movie. That's not what I want to do right now. I want to tell you the backstory. So Pete Docter was the Pixar director in this film, and he was the one that came up with this idea, and he faced a creative puzzle because, first of all, there's a lot of emotions, and he didn't know which ones to put in. So look at the characters. We have Louis Black, who was perfect for anger. We have Mindy Kaling, who played disgust, and that is an actual emotion that I know Chris and I have had experience with people that use disgust as a feeling. This is joy, of course. She's the star. And this is fear. And this is sadness. The droopy little girl that they tried to suppress in the movie. Now, at the beginning, they were going to let joy and fear have the interaction. And 3 years into the project, because I guess it takes a while to get all this animation going. 3 years into the project, they're going, wait a minute, the story isn't working. Joy in the third act of the story should be learning a great lesson, but fear has nothing to teach her. Now think about that statement. That's true. Fear has nothing to teach us, but sadness does. Isn't that a cool realization? But at that moment, Doctor, the director, was so depressed that he was just going to give up and quit the film. But the more sad he got about quitting, the more he realized how much he was going to miss all his colleagues, the more motivated he got. And then he realized, he remembered when he was a young boy, his father moved the family to Copenhagen because he was going to do a research project in choral music. Well, just like Riley, he's moved to a country he can't speak the language, but that is where he touched into animation, because he could draw people when he couldn't talk to them. And so it really changed his life in a way, but there was sadness to it. At any rate, he wanted to go to the executives and change things. And, they were going, this dumpy little sadness? Are you for real? So what happened was that he had hired this person that wrote The Compassionate Instinct. Let me look at his name. Dagger Keltner. He was a psychology professor, and he was on the consulting team about emotions. And he taught the movie team that fear keeps you safe, anger protects you from getting taken advantage of, but sadness triggers compassion. It brings people together. So their appeals to the executives worked, and the rest is history. The movie was made. Allowing sadness to have a starring role sort of saved the day. And it saved the day in the movie. I don't know if you remember the plot, but finally when Joy let go, well, let me show you what she tried. This is originally what she tried to do. She tried to draw a circle and say, sadness, you stay right here. Don't move. That's what she originally wanted to do. And then when that didn't work, she had sadness read all these manuals about the consciousness and the way the brain worked and all this. And because sadness had read all that, she knew how to navigate things when things went bad. And so they eventually had to work together. So I really love this movie. Now, both Keltner and Doctor themselves radiate joy and warmth and caring, and they seem like unlikely ambassadors for sadness, but they did it because you see underneath their projections of happiness. Well, we're not losing. Okay, underneath that, underneath that, they had those sad stories. Now, I know that happens to me, and maybe, I think all of us have sad stories. All of us have something. I tend to be a kind of a happy person. I like it that way. You know, when I go to the NBC group, you know, I'm just so glad to be with you all. And in the NBC group, we're supposed to bring our challenges and our troubles and tell them about what's going on. And they just go away because I'm just so happy to be with people, even if it is on Zoom. But yet I know if you really want to dig into it, oh yeah, I've got stories. I know we all do. We all do. And just like that video in the hospital, it's not always apparent. But wouldn't it be cool if we realized that that's just the way we are? And then we might just be compassionate as much as we can be. I would love that. Well, Susan Cain tells many stories in this book, and some of them surprised me. Leonard Cohen, that didn't surprise me, but she told a story about Darwin, you know, the guy that did the theory of evolution, and his life story shows he wasn't just a science researcher that tried to, you know, shake up the world by having this theory of evolution. He had a large family, and he really cared deeply for them, and he cared deeply for animals, and he studied animals, and he believed that the social instincts lead an animal to take pleasure in the society of his fellows, to feel a certain amount of sympathy with them, and to perform services. He says compassion is our strongest instinct. That's good news. Keltner said that the part of us that is drawn to awe and wonder and connection is intertwined with that sadness. Well, I want to talk about another movie. I bet you all will know this one. Do you remember the Italian war bride who came to Iowa with her young husband? They raised a family and were happy. And one weekend, the father took the kids to the state fair and left Francesca at home. Anyone know the movie I'm talking about yet? Bridges over Madison County. Exactly. And, well, do you remember Meryl Streep was in the movie, and Clint Eastwood played a National Geographic photographer, and he came because he wanted to photograph the bridges of Madison County, and Francesca helped him, and they fell in love. And it was the sweetest, sweetest love. But then her husband was coming back from the fair, and she had to make a decision. And this is the best picture I could find. Do you remember the scene in the movie where she's in the car, and here she is looking out the window because she was supposed to meet Clint Eastwood, and she had her hand on that doorknob, a door handle of the car. I'll never forget that. And was she going to leave or not? Well, she didn't. But their love endured over the years. And it's sort of like they captured this perfect love of 4 days. And that was it. They didn't go beyond that. But they thought of each other. He wrote her. He sent her a beautiful book. And the children didn't know about it either until after her death. And they discovered all this material. So it's such a bittersweet story. Now, what do you think? Did she cop out? I mean, what do you think?
They wasn't a state married if they got married.
That's the thing. You know, we think we've achieved perfection, but we know it's not just happily ever after, is it? So, but you know, they say that Clint Eastwood's character was just yearning personified, you know. Yearning flourishes in the realm of romantic love, but it doesn't derive from it. The yearning really comes first. We don't know that. We think it's just the person right in front of us, but the yearning really comes first and exists actually on its own. Romantic love is just an expression of that yearning. That's it. Now, don't we love these movies? I bet y'all could name a dozen of them. You should have seen me while I was writing this talk. I was watching Marley and Me. Was I crying? You bet. You know, give me a dog story or an animal story. So we could name many of these movies. And we even seek after poetry that's sad, and we love the masterpiece musics that, and it could be classical, it could be a country ballad. Country ballads are often very, very sad. Philosophers call this the paradox of tragedy. Why do we sometimes welcome that sorrow when most of the time we'll do anything to avoid it? Well, it's easy to choose to go to the movie theater, right? Or to listen to the song. But then, most of the time, we really do avoid it. But it's really a catharsis, isn't it? We like art forms that express our longing for union and for a more perfect and beautiful world. We love that. So, I'm going to read a quote from C.S. Lewis. It's beautifully written, and I want to emphasize one part of it. Our commonest expedient or method is to call the longing beauty and behave as if that had settled the matter. But the books or the music in which we thought the beauty was located will betray us if we trust to them. It was not in them. It only came through them. And what came through them was longing. These things, the beauty, the memory of our own past, are good images of what we really desire. But if they are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshipers. For they are not the thing itself. They are only the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, news from a country we've never visited. I say that each of us and everything is a point of power and beauty expressing God. And as I was sitting there, I don't know if I can convey what I felt as I read C.S. Lewis's words, but it's like if we look on each other as that point of power and beauty, and knowing that there's could be some sadness underneath, wow, that would be really cool. That would be really oneness. So, Yes, we are to lift up our hearts and in Christ know the peace that passes all understanding. But it's also true that we do know these times of melancholy. To be melancholy means you have a soul. You have a spirit within you that will not be satisfied when things are wrong, when people are suffering, when justice or equity or truth are not fully realized here on earth. To be melancholy means that you have glimpsed heaven on some level and you recognize that it's not quite here yet. So you long for it, that longing. You combine bittersweetness with creativity and you grapple simultaneously with darkness and light. And it's not the pain that equals the art. It's that creativity has the power to look pain in the eye and to decide to turn it into something better. And I was thinking of Rain, the artist, as I read those words. What if we view our own struggles as objects of creative transformation? What if we simply took whatever pain we couldn't get rid of and turned it into something else? We could write, act, study, cook, dance, dance, compose, do improv, dream up a new business, decorate a kitchen. Oh, there's just 100 things we can do. And whether we do them well or with distinction is beside the point. The point is to do. So I'm going to close with a beautiful poem by John O'Donohue. I love his book, To Bless the Space Between Us. And then we'll go into some meditation, and I've got a couple of those sad songs, sad melodies that I hope that you can just sit and enjoy and connect with. So this is For Longing. Blessed be the longing that brought you here and quickened your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to listen to the voice of desire that disturbs you when you have settled for something safe. May you have the wisdom to enter generously into your own unease, to discover the new direction your longing wants you to take. May the forms of your belonging in love, creativity, and friendship be equal to the grandeur and the call of your soul. May the one you long for you. May your dreams gradually reveal the destination of your desire. May a secret providence guide your thought and nurture your feeling. May your mind inhabit your life with the sureness with which your body inhabits the world. May your heart never be haunted by ghost structures of old damage. May you come to accept your longing as divine urgency. May you know the urgency with which God longs for you.